Hi, friends. Welcome again to another episode of Soaring Through Chaos. And the reason we do this is to share during these challenging times. We are in the midst of a pandemic and things are changing almost every day, whether it's on the healthcare front or on the job front or on how we utilize our time and how we make sense of life. Every once in a while, I run into people who help me to make sense of my life and who have found some sense of life on what to do during these challenging times. So, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was actually in Mexico, in a place called Cuernavaca, Morelos, about an hour away from the capital of Mexico, Ciudad de Mexico. And what is interesting was that both my motherland, India, went into a lockdown, and my home, which is in San Francisco, California, both went into a lockdown. So instead of trying to make my way home, I said, why not live here? And I was alone. So for 1 month, I was alone learning Espanol from Duolingo. And then my neighbors found me, and they became my family in Mexico. I call it Familia in Mexico. And one of them was Antonio Bribiesca. Did I say your name correctly, Antonio?
Yes, it's perfect. Antonio Bribiesca with a Mexican accent.
Oh yes,
Good to be.
Antonio Bribiesca, right?
That's right.
Well, I still have to learn. There's so much to learn. But
Um,
they became my family in Cuernavaca, and I learned so much about Mexican culture, about the youth and their aspirations. So, Antonio, tell us about you. Or how, what did you learn? And now that you're at home, what you've been up to? Anything you
yeah.
want to share?
Well, yes, as you said, my name is Antonio Bribiesca, and well, I my entire life I grew up here in Cuernavaca, where you met us. Actually, I've been living at this home for 11, 12 years now. Before I lived somewhere else in Cuernavaca. But I grew up here, I was influenced by the Mexican culture. I was a normal Mexican kid for about 18 years. I was super influenced by the culture, by the society, the paradigms, and everything. And well, I guess I was very lucky also to grow up in a very loving family that you met. My family has been very supportive throughout my life, and I am so grateful about it. And it has shaped me to becoming now who I am right now, which is well, in this moment, I am about to graduate from industrial engineering in Tecnológico de Monterrey. It's like a big university in Mexico, so a lot of knowledge, a lot of good knowledge that I have come to find that has changed my life actually. And with the scientific knowledge, maybe in engineering knowledge, I started to think a different way, develop a different kind of mindset than the one I used to have before.
Wow, very nice, very nice. So, Antonio, it was such a wonderful thing for me to be there with you guys and to experience Mexico. You were taking me around, showing me all the places to visit. We didn't get to see many places because of the virtual lockdown, but you have a wonderful, wonderful family, and I was fortunate. I was cooking Indian food for the first time, and you were my first guinea pig. You guys tried my food, and then I learned about Mexican cuisine. So really, really, muchas gracias, amigo. So how has life changed for you? That now that you're in engineering, when you come back and you're now with the family 24 by 7, most of the time you're at home. Has your
Mhm.
relationship with your family changed because of your being a student for so long?
My relationship with my family. I guess it started changing a few years ago when I was already in college. It started changing in a sense that before I used to be very, one could say even angry, like I was very reactive to stimuli and to things that would get me out of my zone. I would react very badly, so I wouldn't have a very sane relationship with my family until I started well, to turn around and start looking at me. That was the moment everything really started changing, to look at my own mind instead of outside, you know.
And
So
how
yes.
did you do that? How did you? That's a very interesting concept, what you just said, which is very significant, which is developing self awareness. Were there any particular practices that helped you to gain that looking at yourself and observing yourself? What helped you to do that?
Well, what helped me? Well, I guess for this I would have to go back to before I start college, because I took 1 year, one gap year, where I decided to join a group called Up With People. Actually, I don't know if you may know it. Maybe some of your audience do. It's a group of people, of international people that travel around the world. So I got to meet so many different people around the world, traveling, performing even, and staying at host families, which is people that live in the city where I was, and they hosted us for just to get to know us, no? So I got to know so many different people during this time. And this
And what is the
starting,
name of this group? What is it called?
it's called Up With People.
Up with People. Wow. No, I'm hearing it for the first time. Please
Well,
continue.
yeah, it's a very beautiful group actually. It's very focused on education, self-awareness, and leadership. So I started to be very interested in people, basically. I started to learn that my culture wasn't the only culture at all, you know, that there is a huge universe of cultures in the world, and that my culture is not better than any of them, you know, that everyone is different and that everyone is right with what they believe, no? So this was the first like grasp I had into an open mind, I would say. Then after this traveling, well, I told you it was like 2 years of college where I wasn't really finding myself. I wasn't really knowing what was up with my life. And then I started doing some meditation, you know. Some of my friends were doing it. It was an interesting topic. So I decided, why not? Let's do it in the morning, you know. I started doing it 10 minutes in the morning, then 15 minutes in the morning. And then it started growing, you know. Now I'm at 30, 45 minutes in the morning. I start meditating. Every day I started with some silence in my mind, no? So that is what started to help me turn around and start looking at my own mind. And actually, silence wouldn't be the word I would use to describe this practice, because at the beginning really it's nothing but noise, you know, starting to look at my own mind, and there is so much going on all the time, so quick. I don't even know what's going on, so I just stay there and let it happen, you know. And it's a lot of noise, and slowly the noise goes away very, very, very slowly, you know. So this is like the first practice I started. Then
Wow.
yeah,
And did you use any particular form of meditation? Were you introduced in a formal way to meditation? How did you get into it?
I got into it. Actually, I read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. That was
Eckhart
my
Tolle.
first,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, very
actually,
powerful, very powerful.
yeah, very powerful. And that was my first like introduction to meditation, I would say. Uh, and the kind of meditation I started doing was just to sit and to listen, you know, to listen to everything that's going on, my breath, you know, to listen to my thoughts, to listen to the birds outside, just listen, just, I think they call it mindful meditation, or maybe, I don't know. The thing is, it's just not doing anything. That's my kind of meditation. Stop everything that I'm doing just for 15 minutes, and then I can continue and just stay there for a little while. And that was my introduction to self-awareness, I would say, to starting to look at myself as the person I am, instead of as the person I think I am, or that other people think I am, because I used to identify so much with the way that people saw me. You know, if someone told me something about myself, I would adopt it and immediately tell myself that yes, that was me. You know, so I was very influenced by others people comments. and that created a lot of anxiety, social anxiety in my brain. You know, I would be even scared of talking to people sometimes because I didn't want them to think bad of myself. You know, I was very like, I don't know, like trapped into this kind of thinking. And actually, well, meditation was the thing that started me like, I started thinking maybe it doesn't matter, you know, what they think. So that was like the first start. After meditation, continuing with the question you asked me about my self-awareness, I think it was also about engineering. You know, the thing I started studying industrial engineering. So the kind of thinking they give you is more of systemic thinking, they call it. So you look at the bigger picture and see how everything connects between each other, and how the flow of information goes through a process or a system. So they teach us to start thinking in a way that you need to separate yourself from yourself even sometimes, because you have to see the problem very straight. You have to see the problem correctly if you want to solve it. Because if you start putting your own ideas into the problem, then the problem disappears because your ideas have nothing to do with the problem, no? So they teach us to see the problem as it is. And that was very helpful at the beginning, to just do my homework and organize my life. And then I realized that I could apply this same kind of thinking into looking at my own behavior, the way I behave with people, the way the thoughts that came frequently into my mind. You know, there are some patterns. I started to realize that inside my mind there are some patterns like the same I was talking about earlier, anxiety. I started realizing that it's just a habit, you know, to be afraid of what people will say. You know, it's a habit, and it's a habit that haunts me still, of course, but I have learned to observe and de-identify with it, if that is a good word. So that is my like the beginning of my how would you say, my journey through self-knowledge, maybe, which has changed my life, of course. Yes.
Yeah, you put it so nicely that de-identification or separation, and not being stuck with a fixed identity, to be able to separate yourself from even your own, witness your own self. And that's one of the key elements of meditation. It's very practical to take a bird's eye view. Even in an argument, let's say somebody called me, "You're like a monkey." And I'm like, "How can you call me a monkey?" Then I have to just step back and say, "Well, let's say Antonio called me a monkey, but I'm not a monkey. I'm still a human." So I'll say, "Thank you, but why are you insulting monkeys?" So, in other words, I'm stepping out of the ego and saying, just because Tonio called me a monkey, I didn't become a monkey. So,
Yeah.
but it takes a while, it takes a lot of patience. It took me many years to be able to disidentify, as you were saying, to step out of the ego and say, okay, that's what Tonio said. I don't have to take it personally. I
Yeah.
don't have to say, how can you insult me like that? And because then the whole thing gets negative, the whole thing goes out of control. So tell me more. I mean, no wonder we got along so well. I'm almost double your age, but I was not identified with my age, and you're not identified with yours. And I was getting along with your parents. They're my age, but it didn't matter. I learned so much from you and Rodrigo and Pablo and Diego and everybody, because I was learning about a new way of living and new culture and new places. So much
Yeah.
to learn.
Now that you mention it, it was such a strange thing. We got all together into this little paradise, you know, like we were connected even before we even met, because we have the same like kind of thinking, you know, we understand life in a certain similar way. So that I think that's why we like connected so quickly. So beautiful,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. It's called
Amazing.
synchronicity. It's like
Synchronicity.
because synchronicity because
Yes.
we were thinking at least along similar lines. The
Okay.
meditation connected us deeply, and
Mhm.
you folks were exposed to Alan Watts and understanding of Eastern way of thinking, and then you've been studying Stoicism, which is again from Seneca and others, so different perspectives on life. So you mentioned something earlier
Beautiful
today when we
perspectives.
talked before this call about Stoicism and how it has made a difference in your life. Could you elaborate on that also? It'll be fun to hear that.
Okay, yes. Stoicism, yes. Well, well, yes. After I started looking at myself and all, it became a habit to start, to see my own mind, even as a system. Systemic thinking got into my brain, and I started seeing my mind as a system, and I started realizing that there are habits, or maybe that all habits can be changed inside of us. We can decide to be different, and that's something I didn't know before. So when I realized that I could, I don't know, stop watching 5 hours of Netflix, something like that, or smoking a cigarette, I could just choose to not do it, you know. And then for some reason, I don't quite remember how, I came to Stoicism. Actually, I think it was a friend of mine, who introduced me also to skepticism. That was like the step before Stoicism, skepticism, to question everything. This was a friend of mine that introduced me. And then I found the principles of the Stoics, which have been around for 2,500 years, I think, which teach us to lead our lives in a better way, I would say, to make the most out of our everyday lives. I've always seen philosophy as a way of of being better, of growing. And Stoicism, it has its four basic pillars, which are there are justice, wisdom, temperance, and courage. And these are four virtues that you can apply to your everyday life to just, as we said, de-identify with everything that's going on and make make something out of it. So it teaches you discipline. Wake up early, do your work, be nice to people. It's a way. Stoicism is a way of living that teaches you to be better, a better person. We can all be better. We can all choose to be better, and that's why they teach how to be better.
Very interesting. And also, the good thing is that, of course, religion does the same thing. It helps us to have faith and all that. But I think systems like Stoicism are secular in the sense that they're not dependent on faith. They're not dependent on any particular culture. So they cut across many cultures, which is yeah. Even Alan Watts referred to the east and the west, but it's when we are able to bridge the two, when
Exactly.
we are able to go beyond the east and the west into one universal way of life, and that's where a lot of these perspectives are helpful. So
Mhm.
really interesting to see your journey, and at such a young age, it's so amazing that you're able to first look at yourself and say, how do I become a better person? I also heard that you're now making plans of what to do during and beyond the pandemic in terms of your career and your life. You have anything to share there?
Yeah, for sure. So yes, uh, I started adopting these principles and making them part of my mind. Meditation, stoicism, principles that will make life better. So now that I have had the fortune to find all this ancient knowledge that has been around for years, well, I've decided that there might be a way to give it to people in a package that is very easily, very easily, how would you say, read, received. So I am right now with this pandemic that actually for me it has been very, very helpful because, well, I've been locked down in quarantine for 3 or more months now. And at the beginning, it was a little bit tiring. You know, it was I got fatigued and everything. But then I started realizing that it's a good time to work in myself, no, and see what I can give to others, what I can give back. One might say. So I started every day thinking about ideas, and I came up which is a website actually, nothing strange, a website that I'm gonna launch in a few months, uh, that which is like the purpose is to join systemic thinking, systemic view of life with life principles, you know, natural principles that guide our human life. So in a sense, I wanted to show people or maybe teach people how to use engineering tools, which are for better order in our lives. You know, there is 5S, for example, 5S, the S, which is a Japanese technique for ordering your surroundings. No, the company, the factory, whatever it is, even your room. It is a very, very good technique and straightforward technique to make your surroundings look better for you to be able to work better, no? So this is one example of the tools that we're going to be sharing, the engineering tools that we're going to be sharing. But the interesting part of this site is that it's not only going to be about the tools. You know, the tools are something that comes out from a philosophy, even, you know, from a way of seeing life, which is this 5S tool. Comes out from wanting to have order in your life, no? So you need to order your mind so you can order your surroundings, no? But this is where it comes from. And this example I use it to say how every tool in industrial engineering comes from a fundamental philosophy somehow. And in this website, we're going to be talking about how it came to be, this tool, and why, right? So for example, this order, this is a basic principle of science and engineering that says that we can bring everything that's going on in reality that is chaotic and very strange, we can bring it into our minds to understand it, you know, somehow put it into categories, categorize it, catalog it, you know, break it down with our intellect, and then see how it interacts, you know. So this is the purpose of the principle, to share with people the idea that they too can de-identify from their own old self and decide to be better. And how are they going to do this? Well, they just have to start thinking about reality, realize that there is a reality beyond our own subjective imagination, you know. And this is something they don't teach us usually. For example, religion doesn't really teach us these principles. It's one would say like incomplete in that sense, that they don't share with us that, okay, reality happens by itself. We don't have to do anything about it. You know, it's, the universe is just going on all the time, and we are part of this universe. So people have, I think, I like, my idea is people have to realize that they are part of this universe. I mean, I don't know if it is very clear to say that in these times, but it is true. You know, we are all part of the universe. And that is the basic philosophy of industrial engineering, actually. See everything as one system. That's what they say. Everything is just one system, and you can divide it into subsystems and put it barriers to study it and see how it works for you. But in reality, it's just all going on all the time, and we can use it to our favor, but really it's just gonna stay that way forever and ever, you know? So the thing is, we want to show people that they can to see this reality and then see themselves as part of this reality and then decide to be better. That's the thing. And okay, so how we are like structuring this like knowledge, I would say, or yeah, knowledge, is we divide it into the reality part, and then we say that we use language to abstract reality and put it inside our brains, no? With our imagination and the language we have, we bring the reality that surrounds us inside our brain and we make sense of it, no? And this is a hard part, because with our imagination we can either be slaves and really hate our way of thinking, and that, as you said earlier, the monkey mind, that it's always going on there. It's imagination, you know, it's thoughts just firing up. The thing about the monkey mind is that we are not aware of it. That's the only difference. We are not aware of it and it just goes there. If we just take a look at this monkey mind, then it just like, one would say, it starts working for you. You know, it becomes your
Yeah,
friend.
yeah, huge difference, huge difference. In
Yes,
fact, Tonya, you're talking about such deep understanding of the human mind, the workings of the mind, and the system's approach towards it. I think the Japanese practice of the 5S you're referring to is probably, is it Ikigai that you're referring to? Ikigai, the
I don't
Japanese
remember the
practice?
name actually.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a very practical approach to, what you want to do, what is available, and the overlaps like Venn diagrams, right? On
Exactly.
what your strengths are, what your abilities are, what gives you
Exactly.
happiness, what the system, the people need, and how do you overlap, and how do you find that area where you can be effective. So, can you give practical examples of how your life has actually changed? Can you give examples of how, by using the systems approach and or meditation and like say stoic principles, how have you become a different person? And how has it impacted, say, your work or your relationship? You gave the example of getting up early in the morning. Are there other examples that people will understand and say, ah, I want that?
Yes. Well, yeah. Okay. One example might be, uh, still in this topic of imagination. You know, looking at the world as it is. Uh, I also found another system, another model of the mind that it is like that is very helpful, which is called the archetypes by Carl Jung. You know, this is also a model. You know, okay, it's not an engineering model, but it's a way of looking at your own mind. No, it's a way of looking at reality in that sense. So, for example, this is just a theory, but it teaches you to divide your mind in different elements, just like we do with a problem. We divide a problem into different elements, you know, the actors, the people that are involved, the forces that are making it move, the process, the ins and outs, you know, it all flows, just the same with our brain. So if we see our brain as different, uh, one would say, sub personalities that are firing all the time, then it is a way to de-identify with the mind. It is a very interesting theory, because for example, they have one archetype which is called the trickster. Okay, this trickster talks about the comedy, basically, or our capacity to see a scenario in a funny way or in a different way that was before. No, so that this is common in everybody. Everybody laughs. Everybody has the capacity to see something in a different way and then crack a laugh. You know, so this is something we have all in common, the fact that we can laugh. And this is, looking at this part, you can then see uh, inside of you when a joke comes out, for example, or when you receive a joke and you laugh, and then you realize that there is no relationship between you and your capacity to laugh about it or to come up with a joke. It's just something that happens, you know? So it's like starting to see your brain in a way that just happens, you know? Just like de-identifying. This is maybe, okay, I got a little bit off topic because it's not engineering,
No, but
but
it is related. It's very
like,
related. Yeah.
it is essentially related. And it's an example, but I could also use, for example, 5S we were talking about earlier. I have used it to order my entire room, you know, to put things where they're supposed to be. And when I order my room, then I realize that my mind starts getting in order also, you know, it starts getting in order
Wow.
because my surroundings are in order, you know. And then I start also categorizing my brain in little boxes, just like I put in my notebooks or in my boxes, in my memory boxes, whatever. It's all the same thing, in and out, you know. There's always a reflection between what's going outside in the inside, and also between what's going on in the inside with the outside. No, it's always like a feedback loop. So this is my
Yeah.
kind of.
You said something very, very significant. About a week ago, I decided that I'm going to offer dance meditation classes or moving meditation classes. And the first thing you have to do in meditation is emptying the mind or taking the garbage out, as you referred earlier. There's so much BS going on in our own head. So, in order to empty the mind, I realized that I need an emptier room. If there's clutter in the room, that causes clutter in the mind. So, guess what I did? I'll show you the room. See this? I removed
Oh,
almost everything in this hall, and it's a pretty big space. I took all the
yeah,
furniture out, and it literally, believe it or not, because I have used this place to empty the mind. It took me like 20 minutes with help from the people who wanted to learn dance meditation. 20 minutes, we took all the furniture out and put it in other rooms. And we said, in the meditation class, if you're here, you're just going to stay here and we're going to sit on the floor. You can
mm-hmm.
get a cushion if you like. But the emptiness of the room has to declutter the mind. It's
Right?
almost magical. So thank
It's,
you. It's a very practical thing to do.
it's
Yeah.
crazy, yeah.
Have you been able to use these principles as you're dealing with the pandemic? Because people are in lockdown, so it's not always comfortable. You
Mm-hmm.
can't go to your school. You cannot meet your friends. Are you able to use some of the things you've learned recently, or the many years, in how to structure your life differently during these challenging times?
Yes, yes, actually it has been very useful to like stop all life because I got into, well, putting everything in order, you know? So I made a routine for myself. I started exercising every day. I wake up early now. I have a time for doing homework. I have a time for talking to other people. I have time for leisure. I have time for, so I just put everything into boxes, as I said earlier. You know, my everyday now looks like boxes. You know, because it's okay. It's time for exercise right now. Okay, it's time for yoga right now. Okay, it's time to do all the homework I have for this week. You know, all the tasks I have to deliver. You know, so now my days look, you know, very, very structured. You know, that's what I've been doing, like structuring my mind. And then with this structure, uh, I also apply the Stoic principles that we were talking about earlier. For example, you know, when I'm talking with people, with my family or anything, and something, something goes wrong, and we start yelling at each other or something, whatever. I am able now to see the fire that's burning inside of me. You know, I am angry, I am mad and everything, and I want to shout at everybody, but I'm not gonna do it because it's not worth it. And that is one Stoic principle, that it's temperance, for example, to be able to look at your reactions and not, not identify with them and not letting them out, because you can really think about it and say, well, I don't have to do it. It's just gonna get worse, if I do it. I can choose not to do it. So this kind of thinking, I've started to apply it during this pandemic, actually, because like the same thing, looking at myself, looking at how I'm feeling, even when I'm with other people, you know, this is a practice that has to be there all the time. Otherwise, then you go back to your old self. So that's what I do. Yeah, that's what I do
That's
with my.
again a wonderful, wonderful example, Antonio, because I had a similar experience. It took me much longer. You've been doing it very quickly and making your life more systematized, especially in relationships. It takes a lot more patience to do that. Recently, I had that experience. I always wanted to be a listener, but you know how chatty I can be, all excited and about different things. And once I started interviewing people, and I'm now up to about more than 100 interviews, like 120 or so, I became a good listener because otherwise, why am I calling you, right? Because I
Mhm.
want to listen to you and I want my friends to listen to what Antonio has to say. So I have to keep my mouth shut. And that requires temperance, that requires equanimity, that requires awareness and presence. So I just, anytime I'm tempted to talk, I watch my breath. And I say,
Yes.
no.
Yeah.
And then I may even mute the my phone. So I learned to listen. And it has made a huge difference. Now when I'm talking to other people, I just say, okay, I'm on mute and I'm listening to this person. It's a practice because it has changed who I am after 50 plus years of
Mhm.
talking continuously. So
Yeah.
made a big difference.
Well,
I'm so glad we are talking about these things. And I'm so glad that you are becoming, you have been self-aware even since the time I met you. That was about 4 months ago. We met in, I think, in April. You know, first 1 month I was very quiet and did nothing, but I was meditating the first 1 month. I was
mhm.
decluttering my own mind in Mexico, coming to terms with the new reality. If you remember,
Mhm.
the lady who was cooking at my home, Rosario, she had
That's right.
symptoms of corona. And so I had to sit down and learn cooking. And, you know, cooking and cleaning and Espanol and all that. And then I met you guys about a month later. So I'm so, it's such a blessing to have met you and to meet all the
Same.
family people and all that. Do you have any plans beyond, one thing you mentioned is to create this website and maybe a sort of tools to bring about a change in personality or in life itself using a systems approach.
Yeah.
Is that going to be our main offering over the next few months? Is that where you're going? Or are you
For
also
the
looking at other applications of industrial engineering?
No, yes, I am actually looking for jobs outside of Mexico. I think I would like to go to Europe. That's like my dream. I love the way people in Europe think. The people I know, at least, I love their way of thinking. And well, I would like to go with them and find a job and apply all this knowledge. But like plan, like a structured plan, I still have that on my to-do list. You know, like life plan, but I'm gonna do it, and that's important. And actually, I wanted to tell you that it is like, well, first that you made a huge impact on us. You know, like my family, my, you know, Pablo, Diego, and Rodrigo, everyone, because of the way you share with people. You know, your honesty is like contagious. You know, so I wanted to tell you that actually I have I have been working so hard in becoming more honest with myself. You know, after I met you, I was like, wow, how important it is to be yourself with other people always. You know, and the fact that you were so confident dancing, sharing your moves, sharing your knowledge, just speaking. I was like, wow, this is so good, so good.
Well,
And
as I
now that,
mentioned to you, it took me 50 years to get there. And again, I also hope that I'll be as authentic and as honest as I appear. There
mhm,
are areas where I try to look better than I am, you know. So
yeah,
what it appears is not always the truth. In other words, we all try to modulate our behavior to be liked by
Necessary.
others, to be pleasant, to be appropriate, and so on. But yes, the gap between how I am and how I appear is reducing every day, and I'm very grateful for that. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And also how like we're talking about these things and you're in India and you're from India and I'm from Mexico and it makes sense to both of us, you know. We're talking about it and we're like, yes, this is true. We have to be honest. We have to be more order. We have to clear our minds, principles. Like for me, it is exciting just to talk to you and see that you have the same way of seeing this as me. And I'm like, okay, this must be real. He lives in the other side of the country, of the world. You know, it has to be real, and it's just comforting.
And
Seeing it.
I had the fortune of actually meeting some amazing people from Mexico when I was in San Francisco. One of my best friends is Eduardo the boy who grew up in Mexico City. And another was Arturo Salz. And of course, Mary Wilkins, who is in Texas. And Claudia Amore, she's in San Francisco. So I had the fortune, and I also worked with the people who are in the construction industry. We are remodeling the house. Rinaldo and Joaquin and Orlando. And one thing that is common among all these people was they're very simple. And I love that about the culture of Mexico. What you see is what you get. The difference between what they do and what they say they'll do is not much. So there's no, it's almost unsophisticated, as in, in sophistication, you appear better than what you are. So they were very straightforward people. So it changed me. It changed me. I mean, Eduardo is still one of my absolute best friends. And we catch up on WhatsApp or phone calls every 3 weeks or so because it brings me back to my senses to be authentic, like Eduardo and or like Miri, a very direct approach. I think in some ways that's a common thing between, say, the way I was brought up in, say, the suburbs of Bombay, and the way a lot of people are, say, a little, yeah, in the Ciudad de Mexico, very direct and very straightforward. So that is a similar culture there.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's true.
yeah, we could go on and on, but is there anything you can suggest to people? I know we cannot generalize, but how they can
Hmm.
make use of this time? We are
Hmm.
all, it's not easy to just go find a job today, right? Even if you want to
Yeah.
go to Europe, it takes planning and it takes step by step because right now many countries are locked up. I'm planning to go to Africa next month and I'm still trying to figure that out because the visa situation and once I go
Yeah.
there,
Nice.
what if there's a lockdown? But yeah,
Hmm.
I'm up for an adventure. So, so,
Yeah.
so
I
what
hope
would
you.
you suggest to people if they want to utilize their time well during these interesting times? You shared how you are living your life. Do you have any suggestions for
Mhm.
others also?
Well, the one I would say it's the most important is just to sit down in silence for 5 minutes a day. You know, to stop. That would be my first advice, my most important advice. Stop in the morning and pay attention. Sit in silence without any distractions and listen to your own thoughts and listen to the things that go on outside or anything that's going on. Just feel it, you know, emotions, anything, just quiet down, you know, sit down and pay attention to their brain. To That's what I would say. That's the most important part. After that, you can do anything. I think.
Wow, wow. 5 minute meditation. Yeah, 5 minutes of just being with oneself. Well, I'm so glad we talked. And to people who are listening to us, if you have any ideas, any suggestions, please share as well. And if you want to know more about Antonio, we'll share his contact information, whatever makes the most sense, particularly on social media. I'll share my contact information as well. And please give us any feedback on how we can make this useful, more useful to you. And also, if there's more discussion, if you want to learn more about, we can continue this dialogue another time. And again, Antonio, I'm very grateful. Uh, Eres muy amable, and you're still you're still my familia in Mexico, and I'm so
Thank
happy that I have friends and family like you and your dad, Juan Antonio, your younger brother Rodrigo. I forgot your mother's name, but
you.
yeah, I'm so grateful that I have friends in many parts of the world, and it has changed who I am because what I learned from each other, what we learned from each other.
Yes, and
Uh,
I also want to thank you, Shankar, for first for being who you are, and then for doing this amazing project that is gonna go far, I think. And thank you
yeah,
to your audience, the people that's looking at us. Thank you so much.
yeah, we learn from each other. And if anybody else wants to share about what they're doing, how they're making sense during these challenging times, please come forward. I would love to listen to you. I'd love to share. And that's how we can build community, even during these lockdown times when we are not at will, we cannot travel as easily as we did even 6 months ago. So please stay in touch. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.